Another update. It has been quite a while. It's been a couple weeks. I have got some work done. I was working on another video, and I'm gonna have to reshoot half of it because the mic didn't work. And I've just been busy with work, but I am making progress on it. Still waiting on my fuel system. Magna Fuel was like 3 weeks out on their fuel pumps, so those are in the mail to me. Those should be here Wednesday, along with the rest of my fuel system. I've been working on the interior. I know it doesn't look like it. I have a partial video of it where I removed all the sound deadening and the asphalt insulation off the floor. That's a fun process. I did find a rust hole down there. I'm going to patch that. I did have to modify the brake pedal from my last video, and I've got some video shot on that. I might toss it in this video at the end just so you can see. I'll do a voiceover, that way I don't have to redo the whole video. Not much else done in the interior. I did get my sheet of carbon fiber. So this is an oversized piece. I got to cut it down. It'll be 12 by 24, and this piece will mount on the back wall of the cab to hold the control panel. I'm getting ready to order some more. I'm actually going to cut the back wall out of the cab. You can see through here, this is the front wall of the bed, so it's just a single layer. So I'm going to cut it out as much as I can while leaving the structural supports in. And I'm actually going to do this whole panel in this same 1mm thick carbon fiber. And I am going to patch the hole in the floor. I think I'm going to do that with carbon fiber too. So, but what I'm in the middle of right now is I'm pulling the engine out. Engine's all apart. What I'm doing is I have to pull the motor out and make templates and clean the firewall up. I'm going to fill the holes in the firewall where the AC lines and the heater hose lines came through, and just a bunch of miscellaneous holes like the HVAC drain down there. I'm going to make patch panels for those, and then I'm going to make, well, I'm still trying to decide if I want to make patch panels for them and just make a beauty panel that goes over and covers it, or if I actually want to go to the hassle of cutting it out and welding a new flat piece in. I'm not sure. Right now I'm kind of leaning towards just filling the holes and making a beauty panel, because once it's in there, you're really not going to see much of the firewall anyways. So I think that's the direction I'm going to go with. Let me see here. My garage is a mess. What did I do with them? There you go. These, my mil-spec bulkhead connectors from Burnout to Turnout Engineering B2T, or Maven Performance. Those are going to be mounted right about there. So they'll be out of the way of the intake and the engine components, but they'll be kind of tucked in nice, and they'll still be easy access. So once these are in, I think I did a video on these before, but once these are in, just a quick turn and you can disconnect them. Very, very nice pieces. Well worth the money. But the whole engine harness will be able to be disconnected in 2 plugs. You pull the motor. The body harness is going to come in through this hole, which I'm going to have to make a panel to patch that. I have a 22-way weather pack connector that's going to do it, and it's about that big, so I'll have to make a filler panel. This is the hole for the factory clutch master, because this was a 5-speed truck, so I'll fill that. But I did cut the inner fenders. Took out a couple pounds. It was worth it, and definitely gave me more room. And with the extra room, I was able to build the first turbo support bracket you can see right here, I can rock the whole truck with this thing and it barely moves. They're made out of cold rolled 1/2-inch solid steel, welded to 1/8-inch plate that bolts to the block. It bolts back here. Barely clears the headers, keeps it in nice and tight. It's got a mounting point up here too, so it's triangulated. So lets you take the elbows off. You can take the headers off, like if you blow a header gasket, and you don't have to take the turbos off and the downpipes off and all that. It's kind of convenient. Plus it gets all the weight off the headers, because otherwise all the weight of the turbos, the elbows, and everything is setting on these headers, and it usually cracks them at the flange, or it cracks them up in here somewhere. I don't want to crack my nice elbows from top end performance. Let's see here. There's the rust hole. I'm just going to drill the spot welds out, and I'm going to make a patch panel out of 16 gauge, weld it all back in, smooth it out, grind it down. It'll be nice and you won't even notice. I was really happy to find that was the only rust when I did take out all the sound deadening and the seam sealer. My guess is it was because the heater core had been leaking for some time, and I think it just drained down and it set down there in that corner. But I'm getting ready to pull the motor. I still need to build the other turbo bracket. I can do that on the stand. That's why I left the elbow in its location there. I don't need the turbo sitting on there, as long as I got the elbow clocked where the turbo's at. So get that done. I have to install the double roller timing set so I can make sure the cam's in right, because apparently these VVT motors, some of them, not all of them, some of them, when you go to a regular cam conversion on them, the cam can be up to 8 degrees off in cam timing. There's no rhyme or reason. Some of them do it, some of them don't. Some of them only do 4 degrees. So I'm going to pull it off and degree the cam with the engine together, and we'll see. I'm going to use double gaskets just to space the timing cover out. I think I'll be all right. I hope I don't run into any issues with the cam sensor clearance, since I'm using the LS3 setup, so we'll see. Yeah. And once I get the firewall all patched up and I get that done, the motor's going to go in for the final time, knock on wood. Then I can start plumbing, start wiring, and start actually throwing this thing together for good. So, but that's where we're at right now. So hope to have more updates. I'll definitely do an update this week when I get my fuel parts, and I'll probably do an update when I get the firewall panel made, get it cut, and when I fix the firewall rust down there. So thanks for watching. If you appreciate it, click the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If not, click the thumbs down and tell me I'm a dumbass in the comments. Thanks. And it's out. So empty. But you can see how much more access I got to the firewall now. So I'm going to fill those holes, get rid of all these studs, get those all smoothed out. And you can see I have people asking me all the time about how much room for a 4L80, and you have all the room in the world. That is pretty much exactly where the transmission sets. Actually, I had to bring it up just a little bit, so you definitely have a lot of room, a lot of access. It looks like you could bring the motor up. You could bring the whole motor up, but if you do that and you run a truck intake, you're going to hit the wiper cowl. Now, if you had like a LS1 intake on it, you would still have room. You could raise the motor if you needed to, if you were building a lowrider, but I don't really see the point, because even with the, let me see here, you can see now that it's out. That's the Hummer LH8. I think it's LH8 pan. You see this pan advertised a lot of times as the muscle car swap pan. All it is the Hummer H3 pan, where they had the V8s in them. So I bought this one online. It came complete with the gaskets, the bolts, the pickup tube, and the windage tray for like $100. So you can't beat that. But even with that pan, it sets pretty much dead even with the bottom of the cross member, the main cross member. So I don't see why you would need a reason to even raise the motor. I think all you would do would be to hurt handling. But the motor's out, so now I get the firewall done. I think I'm just going to paint the engine compartment black for now, because my goal is to get it running, get it driving, get it on the street, and then sometime next year or whenever blow it apart again and actually have it painted proper. And I probably will go back to this sublime green. Everybody loves this color. I like it. It doesn't look like it pops that much here in the dark garage, but you get it out in the daylight and this green just pops. It's a really neat color. But for now, I think I'm gonna go back to black. And then I'll respray it all green when it's ready. Strip it down and do it right. So, alrighty. After some elbow grease, all of the asphalt sound deadening is out of the truck. I showed you the hole earlier on this side. Luckily there was no hole on that side. There's some slight surface rusting, but I can get rid of that and treat that. We'll be good. I still have to get rid of some of the silicone where I had the panel over the factory shifter hole. I'm actually going to cut that out square and make it easier to patch. Just weld a square patch in there, and I'll weld those holes where the factory console bracket bolts were and where I had the shifter holes drilled through. But I actually made some progress. I took out, this whole area was covered in seam sealer, just gooped on. Looks like the Ray Charles gooped it on there, so I cleaned all that off. So I'm gonna wire wheel and clean the whole floor before I paint it after everything's welded shut. I also brake pedal again. I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me get my flashlight. There we go. Okay, you can see right there. Well, maybe you can't. I gotta do this during the daytime. But I have a brake pedal. I have the linkage all done. The angles into the master cylinder are really good. The pedal ratio is right where it should be. And the pedal height is right where I wanted it. So that's good. Now all I have to do is make a brake line and get a brake hose for the fronts, and then plumb in the manual proportioning valve for the rear, and that portion will be done. If you notice that brake pedal, the pad is kind of narrow. That's because this was originally a 5-speed truck. I could have went to the junkyard, dug around, and got a pedal excuse me, a pedal assembly out of an automatic truck that has the real wide brake pedal. But I already had this, so I'm going to make do with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the steel. I'm either going to cut or weld on the steel pedal pad. They make universal weld-on pedals. So they're really meant for off-road because they have the die stamped and they're kind of grippy, so they grip your feet. So I'm going to put one of those on there so it'll have a normal width brake pedal. I'm actually tonight going to order the fuel system. I can't wait for that. That'll be coming. I'm going to do a video when all that stuff shows up. Yeah. And there we go. Looking kind of bare. It's hard to believe. It won't be long and I'll actually be putting stuff back in here. As far as seats, first we'll start with carpet. As far as carpet goes, I'm probably not going to put any back in it. If I do, it's going to be that real super thin, real lightweight race carpet. I can't think of the name of it. But I'm probably not even going to do that. I'm just going to leave it out. And as for seats, I'm thinking I like Kirkis, but I don't know if I want to go with those because this will see some street use and those will just beat your kidneys out. Whatever seat I do go with, though, is going to have the full wraparound head protection. So when I do put a cage in this, and this eventually it's going to get a 10-point cage in it. So when I do put a cage in it, I won't have to worry about banging my head off the bars on the street. So, and the electric panel, it'll have the Mega Squirt, the trans controller, the wideband controllers, the EGT controller, all that stuff will be, along with the secondary fuse panel, will all be mounted right back here on a carbon fiber panel. I'm probably going to weld these shut. These were, they had plastic vents in there to let air go through the cab, so when you close the door, it made it a little easier to close the door. I'm probably not going to use those. I think as far as the trim, I think I will put the trim panel back here. I'm not going to put the seat belts back in, of course, because, well, they're not going to be used. That all depends if I decide to keep the headliner. If I keep the suede headliner, which I really like too. I did this years ago and it's really held up great. I like it. It's black suede. I did the visors in black suede too. If I don't keep it, I'm going to sell those. I'll sell it as a set. If I don't keep them, I'm not going to put the trim in it. But if I do keep this, then I will put the trim in it. It all depends. Whatever I make my mind up. Yeah. Alrighty. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.
Because really, I don't know where to get dry ice around here. It just seems like a big mess having to deal with the alcohol and all that stuff. I just used a heat gun, which made pretty quick work of it. It seems like when they put this stuff down, it seems like it has an adhesive back on it, but when they put it down, they globbed glue in certain spots, because there seemed to be a couple spots on each side that were just heavily glued, and then the rest of it came up in big sections like this, where obviously the adhesive didn't stick. I don't know if that's adhesive or not. Somebody can leave in the comments. But once you get it nice and warm, you don't want to get it too hot, because if you get it too hot, the asphalt, that's what this is basically just asphalt. If you get it too hot, that stuff melts and just smears, and then it's just really...
Alrighty, I figured, I forgot about this, I'd
show you how much sound deadening there was in there. I know it's hard to see from the camera, but there is quite a bit. I figure there's probably about 5 pounds of it in there. So you wouldn't think so, because stuff's pretty thin. There's a couple methods for getting this stuff out. There's the dry ice and alcohol method. What you do is you bust up dry ice all over the stuff you want to get out, and it freezes it. Dry ice is like negative 280, I think, 280 degrees. And the alcohol mixed in with it keeps it from freezing, and it turns it into a super cold, slushy mix that you can smear all over this, and it just basically breaks apart. I didn't go with the dry ice method. Really hard to get off. You want to get it hot enough to get it soft, and then with a good sharp, you need to use a sharp putty knife. A sharp putty knife just pops it right off. Let me see here. There's a bigger piece. Yeah, this right here. This is the factory seam sealer. I'm not sure what this stuff is made out of. In the areas where it's really globbed on, just a sharp putty knife will get under it and pop it off. The thinner areas like this, you have to put some heat to it. It doesn't take much. You don't want to get it too hot, because then it just smears just like the asphalt. The trick is to get it just warm enough to where it gets pliable, and you can just scrape it right off. It comes off like caulking when you get it hot. There's more. My shop vacs probably got about that much of it in there, so there's probably between 5 and...
Well, I'm about out of battery, but it's done.
you can see where I moved it where the hole was, and I added the material, and I moved the pivot back. So I welded it on the back side so it's nice and solid. Threw a quick coat of paint on it so it doesn't rust. But there you go. Fixed my mistake. I'm going to start this video out by saying that I'm a dumbass. Okay, I did my last video where I showed you how I modified the hole here, moved it for the pedal ratio. Well, my thinking was a little wrong, and somebody who knows a lot more than me corrected me on this. Basically, yes, moving the hole up here does increase the pedal ratio, but my piece that I was planning on dropping it down and 90ing it cancels that out. Basically puts me back at the same pedal ratio. So I had to do some thinking, which for a dumbass like me takes a while. I have my pedal rod right about here, so you can see I'm already an inch off. Now a lot of people would just angle it and go in that way. Well, the problem is you put a lot of side loading onto the piston in the bore of the master cylinder. It would work for a while, but eventually what it's going to do is it's going to wear that cylinder on the, it would be the bottom of the cylinder would wear unevenly compared to the top, and then you would start bypassing in the master cylinder. The master cylinder would be junk. So what I'm going to do is, I'm in the process of doing, you see here, I've cut this piece of 3/8. It's the same thickness as the pedal rod, and I've chamfered it a bit, and I'm going to weld this in, grind it all down smooth, and I'm going to take this hole and I'm going to move it up just a little bit, even more, but more importantly I'm going to move it back. What that's going to do is, there goes the damn fan, what that's going to do is change the angle of the rod. So instead of the angle of the push rod being like this, it's going to change it to about like that, which will greatly reduce the side loading on the piston in the bore of the master cylinder, so it won't wear the master cylinder out. And moving it up just a little bit more will give me even more pedal ratio, so I'll have just a little bit better pedal. So all I gotta do is weld this in, do a lot of grinding. I'm thinking I'm gonna weld these holes shut too, grind them all smooth, make it all look nice and pretty, even though nobody other than me will ever see it. Or you guys too, not that many people watch this, but alrighty, let's do some welding.